So, two ways child victims of abuse adapt to their situation, particularly if that abuser is a parent, is to, one, get really, really good at reading people, looking for those kind of like micro signs of an emotional state. And then the second one is being able to exist in multiple realities. So for example, we live in a culture and an environment that says, that your parents love you and they love you unconditionally. And yet, if you're a child victim of abuse, that is not your experience. So firstly, you don't even have an understanding of what abuse is. And it's, if you don't even have a name for a concept, how do you have that concept in your mind? So children, in this abuse dynamic are being told over and over again, parents love you, mothers love you, fathers love you. They love you unconditionally. And then their experience is very different. But having to function in a world that tells us something, and even the abusers themselves may be telling us the same thing. And then there's this other experience that we're having that we may not even be able to articulate because we might not even have the vocabulary for it or the concepts. So, paying close attention and then being able to overwrite our own reality with somebody else's in order to feel loved. So this has shown up not just for me, but for lots of people that I have, talked to and interacted with, where they, and sometimes people take it to like I'm intuitive or I'm an empath or something like that. But it could just be, oh, I pay really close attention and I understand people. But once you let somebody in, being really vulnerable to having your own reality overwritten. There's also a complication. Hold up, where are my notes? So I didn't forget. Okay, so a couple of complications with that is, if you are constantly scanning the people in your environment for how they are feeling and what you may need to do to adapt or influence or protect yourself, your brain is constantly full of other people. Like, you are not even taking up the most real estate in your brain. The real estate in your brain is being taken up by other people. And so that makes it, obviously that is a maladaptive but coping mechanism for protecting ourselves in situations that we don't feel that we can protect ourselves. But then we become adults and we still might be doing it, and just very, very worried and focused on how other people perceive us, how other people are feeling in general that may not even have anything to do with us, but just, it's something that we're paying attention to because we've learned, at a really core level that if we don't, bad things can happen. So that is one of the reasons why it is so, so important to step away and learn to be on our own so that we can kind of get everybody's voice out of our own head, remove everybody's, opinions, feeling states, whatever, because in a lot of instances, it's not our business, how someone else is feeling. It's not even necessarily our business about how someone feels about us. I mean, yes, with certain people, but like in general, Joe Schmo, like who cares? It's not my business. And, if you are making it your business about what other people think and feel about you that are not your business, then you're on a string emotionally, psychologically, mentally, just all over the place because you are not your own center. You are not your own core. Your center and your core is in all these other directions. And it's hard to be stable. So anyway, we truly do need, and no, not one victim of abuse I've ever talked to, not one trauma person, nobody People who, a lot of times who have that background want to be around people, want to feel love and give love and be in like loving relationship dynamics, and they do not want to be by themselves. That was definitely me before quarantine. And then quarantine kind of like, too bad, so sad, you don't have a choice. You're going to have to do this now. But anyways, so, nobody, I should say nobody, but a lot of people do not want to be on their own. It's like, why would I do that? Seems terrible. I want to be in these loving relationship dynamics with other people. So the thing is, though, if we don't do that, we don't get centered on our own. We're not the center of our own gravity. And if you're not the center of your own gravity, you are going to be pulled all over the place. And it'll not just be in your feeling states, like emotionally, but it'll be like what you think, So I mentioned in a comment to something on the subreddit where I basically said that a lot of victims of abuse will have beliefs based on different feeling states, particularly in a relationship with an abuser. So if things are going well, believing one thing about the abuser and having one belief about the relationship, but if things are not going well, having a different feeling and belief about the abuser, having a different belief about the relationship. And so when your emotions are all over the place, then your belief about the relationship is all over the place. And it becomes not only confusing for you, but confusing to the other person. It can be toxic and just destabilizing. Like, no, that's not fun. No one wants to live like that. But we unintentionally do it. Okay. So, and I've mentioned this in other videos, but I just want to mention it again. Another reason why it's so good to be on your own, even when we don't want to be, is because if you don't heal from the before stuff, and then you're like, nah, I'm not worried about, I'm going to keep on tricking. You end up doing stuff in the new relationship dynamics. And then there's just more crap to heal from. So like, honestly, the answer, and nobody wants to hear it, and I'm so sorry, I don't want to hear it either. Again, it literally took quarantine to make me do this, but we have to be on our own for so many good reasons. Okay. Yes. So the second kind of hiccup with this, like, ooh, I'm really good at reading people situation is if you're in a relationship and you're reading this other person and you're going, what you're saying is not lining up with what I'm intuiting, or the signs that I'm picking up here, you're saying you feel this way and I'm not getting that at all. Kind of like, it's like a classic meme situation where the girl is like, I'm fine. And the guy's like, that seems like a trap. You don't seem fine. You seem mad, right? Here's the thing. If we are in a situation where our partner is telling us something and we're like, nah, but that's not true. Are we going to insist? No. I know this is true. It can come up in little ways, and then it can come up in really big, important ways. And so then if you start insisting like, no, I know you're whatever feeling, and then the other person's like, you don't get to tell me how I feel, and then that turns into like its own like, ooh, no, bad situation. So the solution to that is to not be in relationships with people who don't know their own emotional states and who are not willing to communicate what they think and feel. If you're with somebody who they have adapted to an unsafe, let's say, childhood situation by withholding information or cutting themselves off from their emotions or whatever, and then we're in a relationship with them and we're going, no, what you're saying, what you're doing, like they do not line up. And then their perspective is like, this person is rolling in on me, telling me how I feel, and that's not okay. And it's a toxic dynamic. And the reason we're in it is because we're not recognizing like that's like if we see a snake, for most of us, we don't need to find out. We're like, snake, run away. But if you're let's say, I'm a read people intuitive kind of adaptation feeling person to a childhood trauma. And then you get in a relationship with somebody who has cut themselves off from their emotions and doesn't even acknowledge what they think about things, and they act in ways that don't line up with what they say, and it's very confusing. Instead of going, ooh, that's a snake, run away, we're like, oh, no, but I understand the deeper situation here. I have so much compassion. La, 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 la. I have been there with my ex. OMG. I don't think that he in any sense was intending not to be honest. I don't think he in any sense was intending to not even be aware of what he was doing or thinking, and the ways that those weren't lining up. And because I was so used to dealing with a person that I love so much, whose reality was very different from my experience of reality, instead of going, oh, we're not sharing the experience of reality, same experience of reality here. Snake, run away. I was like, let me try and understand harder. Let me see if I can communicate better. Let me, put in, he's smart. Maybe I can, maybe I'm not doing this well enough or whatever. And that's not how it works. I don't know, for those of you who saw like a recent conversation that kind of, showed up where someone was expressing an interpretation of like our conversation. And I remember reading that going, what? Like, how did you read what I wrote and like come to this conclusion? Like, we're not even on the same, but I have learned, learning takes time, but old me would have been like, no, this is incorrect. New me is like, oh, okay, we don't share the same sense of reality here. That's important information for me to know, and that's all I need to know, right? That's okay. So there was like a conversation, I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe, it was somebody who was wildly, I think the official term is straw manning, but like where you create a version of a person and you attack that version. And meanwhile, if you're the person, you're like, I didn't even say any of that. Where are you getting this from? So it's kind of like when those things happen in the moment, it's okay to go, wow, this like straw person, that's not me. I have nothing to do with this. Or, if someone is drawing wildly different conclusions than we are, then it's, this is also nuanced too, because if you're a person who's got very little self-awareness, then you can take this message and be like, yeah, I don't gotta listen to nobody else, which is like not correct. But at the same time, if you're kind of moved into more of self-awareness and discernment, then you can look at that and go, ooh, yeah, we're not sharing the same sense of reality here. Because I'm sure if you're, for example, a Trump supporter, and very, very married to the idea that he won the election and that his, lawsuits are valid and all of that, you're being told something that's not in line with your experience, and you're going, no, I trust me, or I trust the people that I'm, believe to be credible, reliable sources of information. And unfortunately for them, as I said before, you can't roll up in the Supreme Court, or really any court, with a QAnon conspiracy theory. Like, it's not how it works. You're gonna get shot down. That's what they're experiencing. So if you're a less self-aware person and you're going, ooh, we don't share the same sense of reality, like, back up, that could be because your sense of reality is wildly compromised. If you, however, hopefully more self-aware and not trying to buy into a certain reality because of feelings, you're more self-aware. if someone comes at you and they're like, oh no, we don't share the same sense of reality, okay, no, all right, good to know, I'm gonna back it on up, that's okay. Again, this is why, and I've said this in other videos, why I love to take, when someone shows up with something that doesn't make sense or track, I really like, okay, well, like, what if we took this at face value? Where does that lead us? That's actually a really good thought experiment, and I've done it in other videos. So definitely something to try. Okay, so what was the other thing? Oh, yeah. So if we're intuitive or good at reading other people or empathic or blah, blah, whatever it is, if we can't create that space for ourselves in ourselves, right? We're the core of who we are. And we recognize like other people's opinions and feelings about us and whatever, not necessarily our business. Then otherwise, so much of our mental and emotional like attention and energy and power really, because you know, where we put our attention is where we're putting our power, is going to these other people. And that's not maybe our business. We may not be in our lane. You know, like of course if you see somebody crying, you know, you want to go over and say, hey, are you okay? You know, can you call somebody or whatever. So it's not to be non-compassionate, but it's not to take their concerns as your own. I mean, really, the only person I can think of that's maybe like the most appropriate thing to do would be like a young child, you know, your child. But anyway, and then, oh yeah, I already talked about the dichotomy between what we feel and what the other person is saying. Yeah, that's a hot ass mess. Ooh, that's a rabbit hole. I will tell you what, my ex and I, it was so bizarre. So my ex-husband and I, for the most part, we very greatly share a sense of reality. Even to this day. Like I've known this man for 16 years. We were married for 14 years. You know, we're very good co-parents. For the most part, we agree on reality. So it was very bizarre to me to get into this dynamic with my ex, who it was like not one. We almost couldn't agree on anything in a conversation. You know, I was saying there going, well, no, that's not true. And you literally, it got to the point where I didn't want to have conversations with him that weren't in writing, because at least in writing I can copy and paste. Go, no, but you said this thing. Okay, and now you're saying this thing. Plus he would he'd interrupt me all the time and talk over me, but then, you know, and then accuse me of doing it as he was doing it. It was just, I felt like a crazy person. So, you know, that destabilizing really occurs at this, like, core sense of your reality where, you know, the only way to have a relationship with this person is to accept their reality over your own. And honestly, that's not going to last for very long. You know, even in cults, that doesn't last very long. You know, there's typically going to be a breaking point, because when you are disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your intuition, disconnected from your knowing, disconnected from your sense of reality, life gets so hard, and you end up second guessing everything. It's like, what do I do? What do I believe? It's existentially horrible to not know, to not have any firm ground to stand on. You know, and you can't even trust your intuition because it's being overwritten by your emotions, which are all over the fucking place. So hopefully this makes sense. This is really one reason why it's super important. Again, get some time on your own where you're the only voice in your head, right? And you can kind of like center around, like, how do I feel? What do I think? You know, you're the gravity for yourself. So that way you can be stable regardless of what your emotional state is. So you want to be on your own, because also then healing. And it's going to be really weird because when you're on your own for the first time, you're still going to be thinking about other people. They're still going to be in your brain. However, that will eventually go away. I can't tell you, it used to be my dad, and I haven't thought about his opinion in a really long time. You know, no, granted, his opinion got replaced with like my ex's opinion, you know, and then I kind of had to like disconnect from that, you know. But you want to make your own voice the main voice that's taking up space in your mind. And then also you can do some healing so you're not moving forward in other relationships. Any other situations, more shit you gotta heal from, that's the worst. The other thing too is if we recognize that we are in a situation with somebody where what they say and what we're intuiting about that, they're not the same, like they're not what they're what they're saying and their emotional state and their actions, like it's not cohesive, like that's a backup situation, right? We might love them, we might have empathy for them, we might have so much compassion, but if they're not doing it on purpose and they're just doing it from a sense that they're disconnected from themselves, like that's still a hot ass mess, and it doesn't matter if their intention is to hurt us or not. That's just gonna, and the relationship's not gonna go well anyway. There's gonna be a bunch of conflict, because people gotta agree on reality. So I just, it's hard. It's hard. We're all doing our best. We're all getting through it. We're all learning. We're all growing, but one step, one foot in front of the other, and we'll get there. Anyway, and talk to you next time.